right, guys, I'm gonna start us off with a little Over the Hills and Far Away.
Yes, please. Take us there.
Oh, lady, you got the love I need. Maybe.
There it is. See, you just can't help but sing it, can ya?
I was waiting for somebody else to jump in, but nobody did.
I didn't. So. I don't know it.
I don't even. Yeah,
what song is that?
We're youngsters. We're little youngsters.
Hey, Matt doesn't know either.
I mean, should we do the whole like hearing "Stairway to Heaven" for the first time reaction video?
Yeah,
Jordan, Led Zeppelin. Okay.
Yeah.
They basically invented the metal genre before metal was a thing. Just listen to Led Zeppelin albums 1 through 4, and you're good to go.
Yeah. Like for the rest of my life.
I mean, I
Pretty
also
much.
have to, by the way.
Okay. You too, Matt.
Yes, I need to as well. Clearly.
If you've never done that, I would highly recommend it.
Or that one live album they had, How the West Was Won. I think that was it.
Yep, How the West Was Won. They have a great video concert called The Song Remains the Same. That was shot in New York City at Madison Square Garden, 1977.
Wow.
They played 2 nights. It's amazing. And yeah, just remember when Robert Plant, the lead singer, recorded the first album, he was, I think, 18 or 19 years old. So,
Jeez.
Don't give up hope.
I mean, that just makes me feel bad more than anything.
Yeah.
Right, I know. That's,
I'm like almost a
Damn,
decade
he did that at
behind.
18. Whew.
But Jimmy Page, the guitarist, was a studio musician prior to him joining. And when they said that he was forming a new band, someone in a record publication said that his new band was gonna drop like a Led Zeppelin, and then they took it on. They embraced it.
So Led Zeppelin's a whole band or a person?
Whole band.
It's okay.
I didn't want to ask, but you have to ask these really hard questions.
It's a whole band. Just remember,
it's the
Pink
whole
Floyd.
band.
Pink Floyd. Okay, there's no one named Pink in the band.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
The lead singer isn't Pink.
No, Pink. I know.
You're telling me there's no one called Rolling? In the Rolling
There's
Stone?
no one rolling. What?
It's not just one person.
I thought it
Rolling
was Rolling and Stone, like Hall and Oates, but I also thought Hall and Oates was Hall and Oates.
As in you got a big truck full of oats.
Yeah, I thought that's what they were doing. I thought they were like, hey, we're just. This was what we did before we became musicians. We were Hall and Oates.
I thought the guy that he just glued Nipples to his back. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He did actually. He did do
How long
do
can
that.
we keep this up?
I don't know how much longer we want to keep.
Was he
Going
cold?
this for a long time.
Was he cold when he pressed play, or
Guys,
We can
stop
see
it. This is ludicrous, guys. This
graph.
is ludicrous. Stop it.
there is a guy named Ludacris too?
There's also he's probably said some pretty crazy stuff, doesn't he?
Yeah, we'll stay away from his lyrics.
He's probably going off the rails on a crazy train.
Yeah, no doubt. Oh, you see.
All right. Seriously, we're done.
Anyone got any others? Jordan?
Anybody need to get out any other
I
dad
have like
jokes?
20 of them. Just like, I'm
just
like
categorize the
back.
list.
Yeah, I showed some restraint here.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what that means.
I'm showing apt restraint.
Yeah.
All right, so a couple things to talk about. We shot a Saber video. I also wanted to talk, maybe if we get to it, a little bit about Wizard Cops. I jotted down some ideas, so maybe we can joke about those. But,
Yeah, and the cat's out of the bag too on that new Ronin 4D as well.
That's right. So, yeah, where do you want to start?
Start with the Saber video.
Okay.
Yeah. So if someone happens to listen to this podcast and they don't watch either the Quarter Crew channel, or follow us on Instagram,
You gotta let us know.
Yeah, we're talking to you, those same people that we shouted out last time we were on the podcast.
But I'm sure all y'all know that we dropped this lightsaber video. Technically not a lightsaber video, energy swords. dropped this saber video over the weekend here. We've been working on it for a little chunk of time here. And it was nice to get back into doing some cinema, some narrative, some storytelling, and also, you know, we talk the talk quite a bit on Stuntman React and VFX Artists React, but it's nice to get out there and try to walk the walk for a minute and see if we could actually make a nice sword fight that had storytelling and tension and things like that. And that was, you know, kind of a bit of a passion drive from Luc LaFontaine as well. I think he's wanted a reason to go out and do a sword fight like that because he knows he has the capability to choreograph it like that, and he just isn't seeing it really in modern cinema. So really kind of just let him take the reins in the choreography, and you know, we jumped in, and as a studio, we knocked out the whole production and made it happen. Jordan did some fine acting. Matt did some fine VFX work. Yeah.
Jordan also and Christian got a dump truck of production logistics dumped on them.
Yeah.
A week. Jordan, what was that like? Getting blasted with hot takes on the production front.
Man,
Trial
if
by
you haven't
fire?
watched the Crew Cuts episode. It was a rough week. I knew we were gonna get it done though. Christian the whole time was like, it's gonna happen. He was like, I don't get nervous anymore because he knows it's gonna happen. Meanwhile, I was sweating bullets every single day. I was so scared because there was so much to get done. Because it was started off like a 3-page beat sheet, I guess, and then Nico was like, no. I'm making this into a whole quarter digital short film. And I was like, oh yeah. And we like sit down and I just get this list of things that we need. And Amazon's like, no. It's not going to get there on time. There's a wall to get built. There's people to dress in gis. I never even knew what a gi was. I thought it was a guy that's on the couch out there. But it was pretty awesome seeing everything come together. It's beautiful. Production's beautiful.
Yeah, you guys did a great job putting that together. I think, you know, there's an ethos of, you know, just tell the story. And I think we did a solid job of locking that in right to where it needed to be without overdoing it because we didn't necessarily have the time or resources to do so. But like way early on, like, so, you know, we were conceptualizing it, and this was potentially not going to be lightsabers. It was potentially just going to be regular swords. But I ended up wanting to spin it towards lightsabers just because energy swords look cooler. And it's a little more clickable. I mean, if we're going to talk about like something that everybody resonates with in pop culture, like everybody knows what a lightsaber is. And so we're putting that together. And part of the reason this was coming together is because DJI had approached us to ask if we would shoot something on their new camera. And we're like, sure. And we had free reign to kind of pick whatever we wanted, which is rare. So there's kind of like well, let's do something cool. As opposed to something lame.
Well, there is a challenge when it comes to these, like, we call them fully dedicated videos. That's when a brand comes to us and they're like, we have a theme. We have a marketing theme, and we want you guys to do an idea that fits within the theme. And we used to take those a lot more. As we've moved on through time, I've become more like skeptical of them. Sort of upfront, because what happens is like you pigeonhole yourself into like, okay, here's a great idea, and then they go, yeah, we like it, but can you just kind of just remove the thing that makes it a good idea? And that happens so much.
Sure.
Yeah. And so, but DJI we've worked with them in the past, and they've just been super supportive of like just getting us the gear, getting us the tech, and letting us go with it. And so it was kind of a no-brainer on this one. Yeah.
And just getting out there and trying to, like, because this is the stuff I personally like to really do. And having a reason to go out there and do it. And you don't have to worry about, you're not trying to make your money back per se, because you're not selling tickets. You know, you're not trying to convince people to give you $1 to watch a cool scene. You can just kind of go out there and do something you want to do. And as long as there's a little bit of that hook that can work to pull the audience in, then that's awesome. But, you know, when we were kind of conceptualizing this, Sam was one who was like, hey, Nico, if you're going to try to make something look good so you can show off that this camera looks nice, just get a good location. Get a good location. Everything else, like, will do its thing. And I was like, that's a great idea, Sam. And the thing is, locations in LA are really expensive. So you kind of need a reason to just go for it. And Sam kind of like pushed me over that edge. Otherwise, I'm pretty frugal, and like I don't like to put too many strings on our budgets in terms of like overloading with stuff, because I think it's really stressful. But but then I basically turned to Christian. I'm like, all right, Christian, let's get a great location. And Christian's like, okay, we have 4 days. And then he started searching. Chase started searching. I don't know if you were in the search too, Jordan. I think you were.
A little bit, yeah.
And the thing is, everything's like a minimum like $3,000 to $4,000, and it doesn't like none of these places would come with lighting. And so you're looking at another couple $1,000s in terms of equipment rental, logistics of getting the truck and with all the gear, the crew to set it up the day before.
Yeah, let's just detail that for a second. A lot of people don't know this. Typically, when you rent a location, the first thing that you're getting in terms of like the understanding of the deal is just the space. So whatever they have in the space is kind of what you get access to. And so, for example, if they have a warehouse and they're like, yeah, we had, Marvel come through here and they did X, Y, and Z to these walls and then they left. And so they have these cool walls, but there's no lighting, there's no electrical, there's no bathrooms, there's no parking, there's no like green room, there's none of that. Sometimes that's what you get. And so you're paying just your base fee. Sometimes it's like, oh, well, $2,000 a day or $4,000 a day. I guess we can do that. But then you realize, oh, well, actually we need to get a cube truck. We need to get bathrooms. We need to get parking. Then we need to get drivers and drive people to and from. And so immediately your costs can just go.
Yeah.
So you just have to be careful.
And it's like, why are you doing all this? It's like to just tell your story. And it's like, does getting a cube truck help you make your sword fight look realistic? And it's like, you're starting to get pretty far removed, as you start having to rent bathrooms. It's like, I could just shoot this in the street and because people don't care too much about the background. They want to see the action.
As long as it's believable.
As long as it's believable, right? Obviously, it has to work and it can't be overly distracting. Yeah. But I don't know how the location was found. Do you know, Jordan?
It was through that app. Yeah.
Well, so Christian eventually found a spot.
Peerspace or was it? Yeah, Peerspace is really cool.
This episode is not brought to you by Peerspace.
It's not brought to you by Peerspace, but Peerspace worked out in this case. Yeah. But Christian found this amazing location that was like half the price of the others. Already had lighting, already had cool dressing, and like the whole time I was pushing like the vibe of like, I want like a dojo-esque, clean. Imagine we're watching the new Dune movie, or Blade Runner 2049. Basically, just let's rip off Denis Villeneuve.
Oh boy,
Villanueva.
Villanueva.
I know
it's Denis.
Denis.
Sup, Denis.
Anyways,
we're on a first name basis with Denis.
So we got that location locked down, and then kind of almost everything else fell into place around that. Ultra Sabers overnighted us. The props, they worked great. They were super durable. Like they're just sturdy. Jordan whipped together all the costumes. We had a power outage in the studio when all this was happening and we were doing rehearsals, but it ended up all coming together really, really well. And of course, like this is a camera that we've never used before, really. I mean, obviously we've played with it, and Matt and Ren used it.
Yeah, and actually there was a little bit of like we got lucky there because we did have it for like 2 months before we even shot this, so we had time to play with it. Me and Ren, like I was operating that camera for a good month before we even shot it, so I was pretty familiar with it. Nico got super familiar with it as well when he was operating. On the day, yeah. But you were messing around with it before.
Yeah,
you had time.
You're like chasing us around the studio, like all right, run over here.
But still, like when you roll into a production where like everything's come together for that one day with an untested beta piece of hardware, it can be really, really risky.
Yeah,
because you can go down like something crashes, something doesn't work, and then you are like your day is shot.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if we want to get into too much detail, but we did have a beta version of the product, and that did happen after we had filmed.
Right. There's because I screwed up a thing with the firmware. Like to be fair, it wasn't like we were recording something and it stopped. It's because I screwed something up.
Yeah.
We
had two cameras though, so
we had two. Three at one point.
Yeah, that's when they're like, hey, we have a brand new experimental technology. You can't talk about it. We'll send you one of them. Film something awesome with it, and then you're like, we've never. And the cameras now, it's not like they're basically like computers at this point.
Yeah.
So they need to be all synced up with your firmware, and
Yeah, the programming and everything. And, you know, if you do something really weird through the menu, maybe it hasn't been coded in yet. But the camera worked excellently. We had 0 issues on set. The picture was great.
Did you take the monitor outside and like walk around the block with it?
Not on set. I mean, to be fair, the second day when we did the dialogue, I literally just sat on a couch with the monitor in my lap pulling focus and then just kind of shouting out orders at Matt and the actors. It was very, very comfy.
So yeah, that was a very chill directing day for you.
Yeah. But it was really helpful. Like, I actually got to get the moments I needed.
We should have brought the beanbag chair, dude.
You could really focus on the, performance, right?
Yeah.
The storytelling aspect of it without all the other technical shit,
Let's take a little U-turn here. So in LA, if you want a good actor, most of them are SAG, aka union. And there's a bunch of minimums that you have to reach before that's even a thing you can consider. So a lot of it is just out of the question for YouTube productions. Even like moderately to big sized YouTube productions, just the SAG thing is really tricky unless
they're big enough where they can come on your show and be like, hey, I'm just gonna go do this.
True.
And then SAG will just be like, should we say something? No, let's just leave it.
But in terms of just classic, I mean, in terms of just traditional acting, especially for all the working actors who are here in town, it's hard to connect with them for a YouTube production. So we do a lot of stuff through LA Casting and Actors Access and a whole bunch of just open casting things where people who aren't SAG or people who are and just say screw it can audition for things. But you end up with a lot of oddballs. You end up with a lot of people who are very unique, who are characters in and of themselves, but they're not necessarily actors.
Whoa. Hey, I didn't see you there. I've been searching the deep dark corners of the internet looking for the best place to get all of your stock asset needs, and I finally found it with today's sponsor, Storyblocks. There it is, guys! It's the one-stop shop for all your stock asset needs for creators and businesses alike. They have high-quality 4K video, audio, images, motion graphics, After Effects templates, and more. And it all comes in a virtually unlimited library, making it such that every time you go on there to get something, there's something new. And with their unlimited all access plan, you can download as much as you want, whenever you want, and use it in commercial projects, personal projects, whatever you need to use it in, you can use it in. It's designed to help you to streamline your process for getting stock assets and to get them into your project as fast and efficiently as possible. You know, I'm looking through these internet tubes and I don't see another place that would be better than Storyblocks. So if you guys are interested, head on over to storyblocks.com/corridorcast to get started, or click the link in the description below. That's storyblocks.com/corridorcast. Oh, look at that. I can see you putting those assets into your project file with ease. I'm so proud of you. All right, well, huge thanks to them once again for sponsoring, and now back to the podcast.
Imagine an eclectic mix from cities all over the United States and the world coming to a location with the idea that they're going to be an actor.
Yep.
And then, with little to no training, and then boom, there they are.
Or maybe a year or two of training.
Yeah.
It's a really unique thing. But it also, it's just,
you can find diamonds in the rough if you put the time into it. But more often than not, you're presented a challenge as a director when you decide to go that route to figure out, how can I get the best out of this person in a way that helps the story and helps the piece without it becoming getting bogged down into basically bad acting. And from all the years of experience we have had doing this, I've started to create a little cheat sheet of okay, here's my safe boundaries that I can get with almost anybody. And then I can add on to it from there as we go. And the thing I've kind of learned first and foremost, more than anything else, is cast someone for their voice. If they have to say lines, doesn't matter what they look like. You can put costumes and makeup and lighting, and you can do whatever you want. Just cast them for their voice. And it also makes auditions really easy because you can literally give them the script and be read it into your phone, please, and send it back to me. and you just listen to it, and hopefully somebody works. And if nobody works, well, then you ask Sam to do it. That was our fallback, was for Sam to be the headmaster. But we found this guy named Poria, who was our headmaster. He had the voice. It sounded great. And then, frankly, you know, trying to find a person that has the look and they have the voice and they can also act for your characters is really almost impossible. Unless you're going to like drop the money, big money to like specifically hire a name actor. You're going to have a hard time getting all three of those things to come together. So we kind of made a point of filming the headmaster like in this kind of like shrouded anime-esque like baseball cap pulled down over his eyes look. And then like as we eased into it and like you got used to the guy being there, like we revealed more of him. But that was kind of like, that was my way to get us into this piece and have acting from somebody who's not necessarily a SEG, just somebody we found online, and have it be passable. It's just focus on the voice. Don't worry about the face for a while. And then also just have the plot really move forwards. And on the other hand, you have Jordan, who basically just aced all her takes, and then, you know, I didn't have to worry about anything.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got a lot of love in the comments from the acting on that one. That was great to see.
I did see the comments. It's all really, really nice. I had a blast. I loved it. The guy was like, "What do you act? You're so comfortable." I was like, "I don't know." I was like, "I work here, so maybe that's part of it."
You're like, "Yeah, sorry, I know these fools. I don't know."
Yeah, but at the same time, I was super, super nervous because when you have something like you just wrote it and you're very, very passionate about it, and I do work here, so I have to see you every day. So if I were to come there and not be prepared and make it hard for you, I wouldn't want to come back the next day. I feel like
you can't just bomb and leave. Like
he could have just bombed and left. I can't bomb and leave. So I was like, do it.
Well, you did a really good job, Jordan. I mean, it's nice when you're directing somebody and what you're doing between takes is trying different things to see how they feel and like imagining the scenes in your head versus trying different takes to find something good. And like with you, it wasn't, oh, I got to hunt and I got to hunt. Okay, now you're hitting something that sounds like it can work. Like every performance you did was good. And it was more like, okay, let's try this version. Let's try this version. Okay, this version is clicking with me. Like, you know, that we were playing pretend more than we were just trying to make it work. Right. And it's nice to be past that stage of just trying to make it work.
I always try to think of like how you guys would be editing it. So if you have different things to work with and you can just pick and choose, because there are some reactions that weren't even actually the reactions that we took for that particular scene. You could just use it. So I try to just stay fluent in that, but still give you guys other things to be able to work with. To be able to choose from.
It was very helpful.
Because I know that would suck as an editor, just to be like, oh wow, every single take looks the exact same. And you just like, all right, let me just pick one instead of being like, oh, that's the one.
I was a little guilty of just kind of letting you do what you did and then like focusing more on Poria and like trying to like dial the performance out of him. Versus like, that's the problem I have is like usually the person who like delivers the best performances on set gets the fewest amount of takes, which is something that, you know, I need to work to be doing the opposite of. But yeah, it was good.
It still worked. It worked.
Oh, it worked great.
Yeah.
It's the first video I've had people say there's good acting in.
Wow.
Which
dang, what about all the videos that I've been in? Dang.
Yeah. So there's that.
They're all wanting a number 2.
Yeah.
They're all wanting it.
I do wonder where the story could go. I mean, it would be interesting to tell a big story about like, you know, all the different things they could do around a sword school. Like that'd be cool. But like in terms of like what's next here, I think it inspired a lot of people's imaginations. I didn't necessarily have anything else planned in my mind. Some people are like part 2.
Here's a question for part 2. Jordan, we cut away to black before you answered the question. Are you going to join the school?
I mean, I already started training.
Did you? There you go.
Yeah.
Cuts to a back alley, and
just
she's
me,
like
practicing.
Yeah, and she's like, you know, it's like a Peter Parker tale where she's like coming up in the world and she's figuring out this new power that she's trying to learn. She's trying to keep it a secret from her friends. You know,
I couldn't afford a lightsaber, so I've just been using my mop.
Yeah,
that's right.
Oh yeah, it's just the mop.
But because of the mop weight, it trains you in a way that no one else has been trained, and therefore
it's the exact weight of a lightsaber. Turns out
that's
the big twist.
Someone did throw out the idea of a slightly different opening where Jordan sees this or hears this starting and like peeks into the room and then sneaks in and then kind of runs into the headmaster who's like standing kind of off in the corner in the shadows also and like doesn't know who he is. And like, so the idea of her like not supposed to be there, but she's has a desire to be in there. And so she sneaks in, she takes the risk and then like ends up talking to this guy who's like kind of sitting off in the corner and then realizes at the end that he's the one in charge of the whole thing. And he's aware that she snuck in and like, you know, broke the rules.
That'd be way more anime.
Yeah. But that's also like, that would have been good. That would have been a good one. Yeah. Instead of just mopping.
I saw that too. It's a good idea, but hey, you know, you're thinking about a lot of.
But he only got that idea because he watched the video. So it's, you know, all hypothetical.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, Nico's writing it and thinking about a lot of different aspects of the story and how the characters are working together.
It's easy to come up with ideas when this sparked that idea.
Yeah. That's why being able to reshoot stuff is actually really nice for making a perfect product.
Right.
You know, there's one funny thing I noticed with the comments. Yes, I'll talk about the lightsaber resting on the guy and Brett disappearing in a second. But that's not the thing. So we didn't set out to make this a Star Wars fan film. Like, those aren't supposed to be lightsabers. This is not supposed to be in the Star Wars universe at all. It's just we are doing energy swords and acknowledging how much cultural weight is behind energy swords as a figment of Star Wars. But the Corridor Crew video, more so than the Corridor channel video, the standalone video, the Corridor Crew video sets it up very much being our take on lightsabers and trying to evolve lightsabers. So when people watch it, they see it as being a Star Wars video. Whereas on the Corridor channel, when people watch it, there's none of that like pretense, and so they don't necessarily watch it as being a Star Wars video. Some, you know, people say lightsabers because that's kind of become the colloquial term for like energy swords. But beyond that, like there's not a whole lot of like, well, you know, in the Star Wars universe, this shouldn't be happening in this scene. Like, there's not a whole lot of that because I think people are getting that it's not Star Wars. They're not feeling that vibe. But even the people who did see it as Star Wars and they're saying things like, you know, I don't like what you did with their lightsaber sounds. I think you need to stick with the original Star Wars lightsaber sounds. Or, you know, other things like that. For all the people that did see it as Star Wars, not a single person commented on the dude with the baseball cap. In the scene, like that had zero like effect on anybody as seeing this as being a part of Star Wars. Like, the lightsaber sounds weren't correct, but the guy in the leather jacket and baseball cap, he's cool.
Yeah, he's cool.
You can get away with it.
Yeah, that was kind of weird. Like, how many people were like, "Oh, just why does he have a baseball cap on?
None.
It's taking me out of it."
There hasn't been a single comment from like for anybody who thought this was a Star Wars fan film. There hasn't been a single comment of them questioning why there's a guy in a baseball cap and a leather jacket in this room, let alone a janitor with a mop. I've never seen a janitor with a mop in Star Wars. Most of them are droids. So yeah. But I do like the idea of this being in an alternate reality, a different world where there are things like the resurrection machines, which is not something you'd have out on the battlefield with you because it's a fine-tuned machine. It's something you can keep in a dojo, for example. Or, you know, a world where people can go and they can train martial arts and train energy swords. And heck, maybe they're not even really that useful in the real world because there's no magic here. It's just a martial art, you know, a discipline. So there's all sorts of like cool worlds that this short exists in. And, you know, it kind of takes me to one other thing too, which was not doing a fan film, not doing a Star Wars thing. Like, we've done so many videos on Corridor that are based on other IPs. It was really fun just to be like, I'm going to take everything I like from Star Wars and that I want to use here, and I'm just going to make it my own thing. And I'm just going to call it my own thing. And like, that was super liberating. And I feel like we did it in just the right way where people who like Star Wars and who are into sword fights and action and all that kind of stuff can see the bridge between that world and this world. But it's still unique enough that I think it's a little more thrilling and exciting. And I think it really shows that for everybody out there everyone out there who feels the need to do a fan film, you can just change things and just maintain the spirit of that fan film still. And I think it'll still resonate with everybody else who wants that. Like, if you really want to make a piece about Batman, have it all feel like it's a fan film about Batman, but just literally just slightly change Batman. Just slightly change him. And that's all you have to do. And like, don't call him Batman. And then suddenly it's 100% yours. And like, people, it feels fresh again, and people come at you without really these preconceived notions. But all the people who love Batman and your love of Batman and that style can still completely exist in this new realm. So that's kind of like my new like philosophy when it comes to fan films these days and like making videos about things that inspire me is just
That's
just
a
take everything I
roundabout.
like.
It's a roundabout way of the 80-20 rule
Yeah.
of 80% previous context, previous creativity, 20% new.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a good way to not be like super restrictive in what you can do as well. You know, it's like freeing. You're not just like stuck to the original IP. It's like you have free reign to do, you know, whatever you want within the bounds of that world. Right?
Definitely. And I think it is in a way exciting. Like when you do successfully hit the tone, because I think that's a lot of what it is people just really like the tone of like take, for example, Peter's Spider-Man video that he made. Like, I think he really likes the idea of, you know, a character swinging through buildings and the tone of a Spider-Man film, that kind of friendly neighborhood Spider-Man vibe. And that all exists already in the Spider-Man world. The moment Spider-Man's on screen, you get it. But you could, I think these days, especially because of like how prevalent YouTube has been and like, you know, creator content and fan films, all that kind of stuff, you can hit something that is clearly Spider-Man, just slightly different, but clearly still Spider-Man. And at this point, I think people are like, ah, cool, let's do it. And they're down. Like, I'm down for alternate reality Spider-Man. His name is Spider Boy, you know, like, or whatever. Like, and his costume's purple and yellow instead of green and, or, you know, blue and red. Like, if that's it, and then everything else is exactly the same. I think people are actually totally down for it these days and like that. And heck, if it blows up, now you have your own IP in addition.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, man. No, two things on that. I'm glad that that you got a chance to get out and shoot something, like, you know, wholly original.
Yeah.
That's
me too.
You know, we had a lull of that obviously with last year, and then, you know, with the way that the crew channel's been, which is still, we're exploring new ideas there constantly, but we're also putting them in that particular format. And so it's nice to break it out of that a little bit. Yeah, I'm excited to do more of that. I'm starting to feel that itch again, you know, to like make some stuff and really like make original stuff. And yeah, no, I spent part of today just writing out some ideas for Wizard Cops, the series. So hopefully you guys like them, and we can actually make that a reality.
This is a little Greenlight teaser, by the way.
Yeah. Has anyone heard anything about this? You just like casually dropping that?
No one.
Yeah. I mean, I'm talking about it because
yeah, I'm super excited about that too, because that's one of my favorite like corridor videos.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because last year, I guess, no, it was earlier this year. I was just kind of like going through the library and kind of like what Nico was saying, like looking at, hey, what stuff are we doing or have we done that people enjoyed? It has an element of originality to it, but it's also got that sort of 80-20 balance and is producible like at a small enough scale without sacrificing story. And that one, I mean, it's got comedy, it's got action, it's got magic, it's got visual effects. You can do through lines with characters. You can take it out of the cops, you know, like the direct cops where it's just, you don't care about the characters. It's just scenes and interactions. You can expand upon it a little bit with like interpersonal dialogue between the characters. But then also still get all of that, like scene changes, the action, the sort of quick pace of it and the bite-sizedness of it, you know, keeping it like still 20 to 30 minutes. So yeah.
I just like that you don't have to worry too much about shot lists because you just shoot it reality style.
That's another amazing thing about it. When we shot the original, it was like, wait, we have 2 cameramen? Okay, yeah, just act out this. It was like stage acting, and you guys were just standing there with the shoulder mounts. And the best thing is the show that you're drawing the inspiration from all they do is shoulder mounted with a light on the camera.
It's the easiest cinematography ever.
Yeah, like that's your setup, and it's wobbly and it's janky, and you don't catch everything all the time, and it works because that's what people are relating it back to. That's what they're expecting.
Yeah, and you get that, like you get that inspiration driving things like The Office, Parks and Rec, What We Do in the Shadows.
Yep.
You know, all that
Totally.
stuff follows the same vibe. Except we
And
get
I
to be even
remember-
lazier.
Well, I remember when we conceptualized the first one, I believe you wrote it, Nico. Or you and, was it you and Andrew? Or was it just...
I think it was mostly me, and then Andrew really helped design the spells and all that kind of stuff.
So when you wrote it, the first thing you said to me was like, I was like, well, I want to write the next episode. And you're like, well, you kind of need to know Dungeons and Dragons. And I was like,
Yeah.
you know, and today I like fully realized that, because I was sitting there and I was like, okay, how is this not just cops with wizards? You know,
Right.
like how is it wizard cops? Like how is it different? How is it different? And so I was really starting to pull out, you know, like in the intricacies of the jokes of like, hey, you know, this person's caught for like, you know, trying to obtain this contraband or something. But what about that makes it fantasy wizards rather than just like, this is an illegal drug, you know?
Yeah.
Like thinking of layers deeper than that. And I was able to get a decent start on that. So
Nice.
maybe next week I'll share it with you guys, and I'll see how far I get.
Sweet. Yeah, and you know, you got D&D under your belt now, you know?
Right.
You got the experience, cuz like it's all about those things like you know, like what's the equivalent, whoopsies, turn on my flashlight. What's the equivalent of a taser in the fantasy realm? What's the equivalent
Right.
of a warrant? What would somebody be trying to steal? You know, if it's not money, you know, gold coins. What are drugs? What do they do to you when it's in the fantasy realm? And then, of course, always revisiting the tropes we already know and spinning on those just a little bit.
Right.
Like, what's a little spin you can do on, you know, not only the cops tropes, but all the fantasy tropes. So
Totally.
that's actually something that Tanner and was it Brian?
Yeah,
He was
Brian.
Tanner and Brian.
Is it Brian?
Yeah.
I think it's Brian.
Tanner and Brian were the two cops, and they did some really solid improving. Like half the dialogue is them just playing.
Brian McGowan.
Brian McGowan. Yep.
Yeah.
And I think it's another big thing is like just getting people in that could just do the whole improv sketch thing and just have them have fun with the characters.
Those two, and I think Tanner especially, like Brian was great too, but Tanner has that like sort of like dad vibe to him, you know, and he's really witty and quick with the stuff, and he's a great actor. Man, he was so good in the first one. It'd be awesome to bring him back. I don't know what he's up to these days, but it'd be really fun.
Yep. Also, you know, one other thing that I've been thinking about is like it's undeniable that there's a draw in the business if you can get names in your pieces, right? If you have a certain actor, people will go see it.
Yeah, totally.
I wonder how much we can do the same thing with like online personalities. Like if you did Wizard Cops, but you had like each episode, the people that make like the 911 call or whatever the wizard equivalent of that is.
We need to have Freddy be a bad guy.
Yeah, but you know, you have different, you know, different police stories, except you get different like famous YouTube comedians to like play out the different roles and stuff. You know,
totally. We should
could be really
totally do that. Yeah,
Definitely ups viewership for sure.
Yeah.
You just have their whole audience now wanting to come watch it. That's the reason like all these blockbuster movies are getting all these influencers from Instagram being the main actors. And you're like, I didn't even know they could act. And they're like, their
They
Vine
can't.
profiles.
They can't.
Sometimes they can't. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes they still can't. They just bring all the people to the movies.
Says the influencers.
Says the influencer who was acting.
I proved I could act, so I'm.
Yeah. The comments don't lie. Yeah.
Comments don't lie,
Comments
especially
don't lie,
YouTube
baby.
comments. They don't
Comments
lie.
have never lied before.
YouTube would have told me.
This might be too nerdy, but like a thing that I also was trying to lay into on this in the script was the department, the cops are wizards. Like they're not just like any type of magi creature, right?
Oh, they're
like
specifically wizards.
They're specifically wizards. Yeah. So I was thinking you could have a controversy throughout the script where like there's some debate about like bringing in other types of beings into the department, and they're like, oh gosh, but we're all wizards, and like, like some through lines like that. Yeah. Dude, I got to this one point where I was like, okay, they're gonna breach a door, and then my first instinct was like, okay, they need a ram, but then it's like, no, they don't. A wizard would never use a friggin' ram to breach a door. Like that's the most unwizard cop thing ever. So anyways, I'm having all these revelations. I just need to get them off my chest.
I mean, you know how I would have the wizards breach, right? I'd have them set up at the door, and then the one guy steps up with his paint, which is probably lamb's blood. So maybe they even or like a chicken blood. So they like literally like slaughter the chicken right there. They paint the rune on the door. They step back. They touch it with like their 2 fingers, whisper the magic incantation. The door shatters and blows inwards. They rush into the room. And then the door pieces then reassemble themselves back into the door. That's
almost exactly what I wrote, except for instead of blood, I was using gold dust.
Oh, great. Wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how do you know to do that?
So there's actually there's a deep lore of like wizard action that I have at least been working on in my head for the past 6 years. Because I've been really wanting to do like some more like a gritty fantasy like fighting.
Yeah.
I even wrote this like 12-page long script at the beginning of the year here that never turned into an actual good story, so I never made anything. But like Jake and I have talked about this, Sam and I have talked about this. Like we've all been bouncing this around, but like really been wanting to do like a wizard SWAT thing. And it's not goofy, but like if you had like 4 or 5 like tactical operators but they're using magic. Basically like in the world of Harry Potter, what does a SWAT team look like? Like not a funny SWAT team, a real SWAT team that would use that kind of stuff. That's going up against magical criminals and stuff. Like what would their tools look like? What would their tactics be like? You know, none of this stuff makes for an interesting story though.
That one's way more in line with like your style. I think I lean more into like the whimsical, like situational comedy.
Yeah, none of that's like I was saying, like none of that stuff is actually a story. That's just like a setting. But yeah, Wizard Cops is definitely a much more goofier version of that. Though I do like the idea that if they have to call the Wizard SWAT, they take themselves completely seriously.
We should do a SWAT episode within the season, and they're just like, holy shit.
Yeah, the battle mages show up.
Yeah. From another plane. They call in battle mages from another plane.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
It's really also fun to explore like modern day issues through that lens, you know, like what does defund the police look like?
Yes, that's
or like all AWCAB. You know, it's like all that stuff exists here too, but it's like
it gives you that opportunity to like, you know, do comedy with it a little bit, you know, because that's how we get through that stuff. Is like you got to be able to analyze it.
Jake, what's the Wizard Cops equivalent of like the Punisher skull with the blue tooth?
Oh, dude, that's a great question.
Thin blue line Punisher skull.
Yeah, probably like it's a thin blue line. But instead of the line, it's a staff or not a staff.
A wand.
Wizard wand.
It's a wand. Yeah, it's a blue wand.
It's just a thin blue lion.
A very malnourished lion.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jordan in like Dungeons and Dragons pulls on this, but like there's this idea when you're casting certain spells that are like beyond just, you know, like your level 1 spells, where you need to have like a gesture involved or like a material involved. Otherwise the magic won't work. I don't know where this stuff comes from. I mean, I imagine it goes all the way back to like, you know, actual alchemy and like human history and carrying it forward in storytelling. But yeah, that's why like, well, of course you need lamb's blood or gold dust to open a door.
Yeah, like I would have no idea.
Material plane.
When he was like, well, you know what I would use, and I'm like, does he?
You don't open doors with lamb's blood.
Obviously, we would cut a chicken right in front of it. I'm like, okay. There's some more research I need to do.
You guys were saying earlier you're pulling from D&D, so is that a D&D thing?
Well, D&D pulls from all of that stuff, though, too.
Yeah.
It's not like D&D
so it's a little
is
deeper
like,
than.
Well, D&D does have like spells like somatic components, verbal components. Basically, in other words, and they've simplified this in 5th edition, but like 3.5 is kind of when all the stuff reached its peak, where each spell had 3 components in any combination thereof. either you had to say something, you had to move a certain way, or you had to have a certain amount of something to cast a spell or any combination thereof. So maybe you need a pinch of dry grass, you need to whisper a few words, and then you can cast like Wind Wall or something like that.
Gotcha.
And the thing that came out of that is that other players would have things like a silence spell, and they could cast it on an area and it creates silence, meaning any spells that required a verbal component couldn't be cast because your words wouldn't exist. And that's where, like, if you ever played like Final Fantasy, the spell Silence is a pull from Dungeons and Dragons, because the closest you can get to an anti-magic spell is a silence spell, because then they can't whisper the magic words.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Interesting.
See, we need to do. Yeah. I did my first tabletop game, but it was Alien.
Yeah, so C-Mike DM'd a game for us.
Yeah.
Along with Nick and Christian
I saw some pics of that.
And
Looked
Griffin.
fun.
And it was all Alien themed. And it's a lot of fun. It's actually a lot of fun. We just started the campaign like a week ago. But
we have like 15 more hours to go.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Right? I'm down.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's
do it.
Can we talk about the two most prevalent comments I think I've seen in a video ever, which is the sun disappears and the lightsaber rests on Kendall's chest.
The sun actually, can we do the sun disappears first? Because when I went through, because I did a pass of the cut after Nico did a couple of passes, didn't notice that.
Really?
I didn't notice that. Huh. No. And you know why? It's because the point of the editing in that scene was the pace of the fight. So I'm paying attention to the actual fight and how it's all being cut together, and not the sun in the background. Everyone else who is just a casual audience member that's not actually editing it, right? They're just watching it, right? Passively. So of course they're gonna see everything, right? But like the whole reason I was going through this pass was to figure out those details of the actual fight and of like how it was intercut.
And there's so many people watching it for him too. Like they saw him there. There's so many like comments about him, so their eyes are focused on him rather than like.
Sure.
Hey, that's the guy from Boneworks.
Yeah.
My point is though that I totally agree with your choice, because I'm sure you knew.
Oh, I knew from day. Well, I knew the moment we shot the shot without Brett in it, because if you saw the Core Crew video, we have this one really long take where they go through the entire sequence of choreography at the end of the day, which is amazing that they did it as clean as they did in that one long take. But we did that twice. So we're like, we're at the end of the day, we're all done shooting, and Luke's like, let's do one long take. I'm like, yeah, heck yeah, let's do it. And we did it, and Brett wasn't there because it's the end of the day. We had basically said, that's a wrap. And we did it, and they nailed it. They were so good at the choreo. It was the best part. It was like, oh man, like once you put away all the acting and they've had a whole day of just doing this, and they just run through it. It's like, it was the best choreo I had filmed the entire day. And it was like, okay, we need it one more time. We need to get Brett back in. And then we did it again. But I'm going to pick out the best takes. And there's two moments that were just the best, both from like the camera work and the acting and the choreo, that were from that take when Brett wasn't there. And part of me is like, I could always put Brett back in the shot, or I could just not worry about it.
Or just don't worry about it.
Just didn't worry about it. You should go full George Lucas and release an updated cut where you put him in the background.
Yeah. And, I figured not everybody would notice. I mean, it's true. Like, Matt didn't even notice. And
I didn't.
I did. Yeah. And this is my profession.
Did you notice, Jordan? I did not.
Jordan didn't notice either.
This is actually the first time, for some reason, I didn't even see that comment about Brett. Not being there anymore.
Well, obviously you brought it up because you were talking about like we should add him. We'll either add him back in, or I mean, you should have seen the list of VFX though.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like now going to the next comment, the next big one, which is the lightsaber.
I just want to ask
when it was lying down
purposely, not purposely. Did you guys do it on purpose? Did you not?
The lightsaber on his chest.
Kendall just happened to fall that way. Well, actually, let me back it up a little bit. The lightsabers, they're supposed to turn off when you stop holding them. But that requires us to paint out. Like, we had the prop on set. It was casting light. And he dies in that shot. And we'd have to somehow paint out the light. We'd have to paint out the stick. Yeah. So,
also, the hilt, like the actual lightsaber, it's like at an angle, right? So it would then have to be we'd have to figure out how to adjust it.
Yeah, it was just
it
painting
wouldn't make any sense to.
Yeah, so we had to record the shot with him holding the lightsaber on, and that's just kind of how he fell over. Is at the end of the day, once again, we were running out of time to get the rest of our shots, and there came a moment to decide in the edit and post, do we want to put visual effects on that shot or not? Like, not necessarily paint out the sword, but do we want to have it like start sizzling as it like cuts through his body? And it opens up this can of worms with like the revive shot that happens next, the amount of damage on his gi. And also I know it's distracting as it is currently, but it'd be even more distracting if he brought attention to it with like sizzles and lens flares and smoke.
Yeah, it
it's
would
like,
have to have all this like sparky, like, lens flare flashing and stuff that would just,
when the whole point of that scene is the student just won and like you're trying to turn everyone's direction to that. And everyone's like, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Saber.
And at the end of the day, it's like, there's so many movies that we all love, that we grew up loving, that we even love now, that have blatant errors. And if we love the movie, we don't worry about it. And that's kind of at the end of the day what the running ethos was for this. It's like Brett disappearing for a moment in a shot in the background, or Kendall dropping the lightsaber across his body at the end of the fight. Neither of those things made the story not work. Neither of those things were like huge mistakes that pulled you out. And I know for some people it did pull them out to have the lightsaber touch them and not cut through them.
What's funny though is if he would have dropped it on the ground, would that have mattered at all in terms of like?
Probably not.
Right.
The lights. Okay.
Well, my assumption is that if he dropped it on the ground, not as many people would have said much. But like, if you think about the lightsabers, they probably burn through the ground. I mean, if you take Star Wars as your canon, you can stab those things into like ships and into door. Remember Obi-Wan stabs one into a door and then melts it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
the hilt would have kept it from touching though, no? Or
a little bit.
Yeah.
Probably, but yeah, either way. I don't know. It's kind of interesting the contrast between making like a cinematic film for YouTube versus like a theater or a streaming platform. Can you imagine if there were comments on streaming platforms like Netflix?
Yeah, they'd be like, no, we gotta fix this right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Big studio heads would be like, hold on, we gotta make some changes.
There's the reason why there's no comments on Netflix.
Yeah.
But if at the end of the day everybody liked the piece and enjoyed it, then is it really that big of a deal that Brett disappeared for a minute or that Kendall dropped the lightsaber? And yeah, we could have fixed it with like days more of work, but I would rather shoot another episode of VFX Artists React or get home earlier and have dinner with Ivy and Milo or whatever. Like, I love making this stuff, but at a certain point, I want to be putting my efforts, or I'm assuming the same for you, Matt, or Jordan, anybody else here. You want to put your efforts into the stuff that matters. And that's always a gray area, but at a certain point, it's like, if this isn't bringing joy, if this isn't making somebody excited, if this isn't making the scene better or more emotionally intense, if it's just me fixing an error to the point where if I do my job correctly, nobody will even notice it at all. And as it currently is, it doesn't detract from the piece. Like you're almost wasting your time at that point.
Yeah.
And so that's why we decided to just leave those errors in there. And the other big reason, that's only 50% of the reason. The other big reason is that by leaving two glaring issues that aren't so glaring as to detract from the piece, like the piece still works, it's great, you can enjoy it, it's entertaining, it's got the story, it's got the emotion, it's got all those things. But there's these clear little things that everybody can see that are technically mistakes. By leaving those in, we probably got twice as many comments and twice as much audience engagement than if those things weren't there at all.
Yep.
There's also the old client rule, which is if you leave in a mistake, people will notice that and not the other ones.
Exactly. Yeah, if you're sending work to a client for them to give you notes on, you leave one glaring problem, so that's what they put their notes into, versus like them scrutinizing work that you've put hours and hours into making perfect, and they pick that apart. Yeah.
We did have to fix the nipples though.
We had to fix the nipples. And if
that was in the VFX spreadsheet. Those nipples, it was called Nips Out. That's the name of the shot.
I don't know this shot.
Yeah.
So the student. No, you explain, Matt. You explain.
Okay. Actually, Jordan, would you like to explain?
Because where I cut the hole?
It's the holes.
The hole though was way lower though than.
Yes. Okay. So basically,
we just got a title for this episode.
Nips out.
So the hole I made looks
Fix
like
the
a nipple.
nipples.
No, actually, unfortunately, the hole that you cut, which you cut some great holes. You did a great job with those holes. Unfortunately, one of them was directly on his nipple when he was standing up.
And the other one is almost on his other nipple.
Yes.
Because he gets stabbed in the stomach. And so he's supposed to have a hole through his knee.
It very much looked like he had two cut out like nipple holes.
But you know what happened is when I was cutting those holes, I put it on myself and was like trying to figure it out because he was out there already in the other D, and I was like, I can't go grab him. Like they need them on set, and then I go to start putting it on him. I'm like,
Okay.
Yeah. So
I already knew it was kind of tight, but didn't realize that was
so what needed to happen, because that, I think with VFX like that are like, you know, just fixing glaring problems, it's like you got to pick your battles. You know, you got to be like, what is the more distracting thing, or what is the thing that's gonna like detract from the story?
Probably
he's
this dude with
dead
two
and
holes
he's
cut out his knee
Yeah.
right over his
I
knee.
couldn't imagine if that was in the whole thing.
He's dead and he pops up and he's just got the nipples hanging out.
Yeah.
It's the scene where he bows.
Yeah.
It's the scene where he bows, and then he's finishing bowing, and the guy, the teacher walks up and gives him a hug or whatever after he's been revived.
It's a very important story moment.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be detracted by his nipples.
And what should have been a hole for continuity of him getting stabbed, which is like there's still another hole on there that works, but that's why the holes are there, is for continuity of his costume getting destroyed.
I wonder how many moments like that, like say you have a sword fight in real life, right? And it's like, okay, there's this heroic moment and this person beats somebody else, and it's like, you know, it's like this medieval like event, and then the person stands up, and instead of it being like in the movies where everything's perfect and it's like, okay, they don't have holes on their nipples, like they do. How many times has that happened where it's like some hero has stood
Probably a
up
lot.
and had that happen?
I mean, people lose like their clothing in fights all the time,
Right.
which is very primal and like raw.
Yeah.
But like that's not what movies are like.
No.
Right.
No, way too distracting.
Yeah.
Well, but long story short, well, actually, it was still a pretty long story about nipples. We just had to we literally just removed painted out the nipple part in the hole, and that was that. Yeah. I think, that's like a pick your battles thing. There's also like at the end of the last day of VFX when we were wrapping it all up, you know, obviously there was the lightsaber on the chest, but I had a little bit of time to do something else, and it wasn't going to be like adding a little smoke or something to that. It didn't seem to bother me either, and definitely not Nico. But one thing that I did want to do was add a flash from that revive machine when we cut to you, right? So like little things like that, I feel like are more important than you know, trying to fix some lightsaber on the chest.
And if you're commenting about the lightsaber on the chest, check this out. We shot that in 2 locations, and you probably didn't even notice that Jordan and the headmaster are at an entirely different location. And when we cut to those shots where it's OTS on Jordan, that's not even Jordan.
That's Nick.
Not even Jordan.
And I'm not watching 2 people fight. I'm looking at a wall.
That's right. So you
And
just
Nico
got
just saying, they're fighting. His hands off.
Yeah.
And we built that wall.
Yeah,
Yes,
The one
we
I'm
did.
standing in front of.
You did.
Me and
yeah.
Christian.
You and Christian did.
You guys did a great job with that. It totally sold.
It
It does.
literally
Yeah.
looks the same.
It looks
I forget that
identical.
we're in 2 different locations.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the door gig. Like the door
Oh
opens and he
my
walks
gosh.
in, and it's just a light.
Yes, it's just a light, and I'm like acting surprised every time. It's just you walking by.
Oh yeah. By the way, that's also not the student.
Me and the
walking
student
by
were
in that
never in
shot.
a scene together. You walked by. I think you flashed the light,
I think Christian did.
or was it Christian? Yeah, Christian flashed the light to act like the front door was opening, and I was
It's
like,
all just smoke and mirrors.
yeah.
It's all just
So-
building blocks. They're just making a very fancy picture book. That's at the end of the day all we're doing.
Yep.
Yeah.
At 24
was
frames a
fun.
second or
Yeah.
30.
Yep. All right.
Man.
Well,
Wow.
There you have it.
lightsabers
To the death.
It was very, very wonderful seeing all the comments and reception from it. At least for me, the happiest I am as a filmmaker is on the day of film releases, and then seeing people be like, "This was cool. I like this. It makes me want more. I'm imagining what could happen next," and people like writing out their own stories, or even people like being like, you lost me on this moment or whatever. It doesn't matter. Like the fact that there's so many people so inspired to like write comments and share their their emotions from like what the piece made them feel. The fact that it made anybody feel anything is super, super cool. And like, it was a showcase, I think, of like a bunch of talent from so many different talented people. So yeah, it was like super, super fulfilling. It was a wonderful weekend. I had a great time.
Hell yeah.
My Saturday I was on cloud 9, and my Sunday. I mean, my Sunday. It didn't come out Saturday. It came out Sunday. I had a good Saturday too, for what it's worth.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that means we need to go back over those hills and closer to where we came from.
All right.
Yep.
Before we get over and far away.
Maybe a place where Jordan and I know the lyrics to the song.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, no, you gotta play the rock and roll part that kicks in.
Okay, let me see if I know it. I have to play the whole thing to get there. I don't remember it. I don't remember it.
Da, da, da,
Sorry.
Nice. Robert Plant he sounds like a chipmunk, so yeah.
Wow, cool.
He sings like that.
Well, you guys have definitely encouraged me to.
I think.
Hear the
Wait, is
song.
that on? Wait,
I've
hold
heard
on.
this
Is that on
song.
Led Zeppelin 2 or 4? Is it Over the Hills and Far Away remastered 1973? That means it's on Led Zeppelin 2, I believe.
All right.
Oh, no.
All right. People are sitting here listening to this podcast.
hold
and
on,
Jake
hold
goes
on.
to
Okay,
Wikipedia.
real
Led Zeppelin.
quick. It's on
What's
the
your
song
album?
remains the same. 1973. Jordan, listen to that one too. All right, we're done.
What's the name of the album? What's the name of the album?
The song remains the same. It's their 5th album.
Oh, okay.
Song
There you
The
have
song
it.
remains the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or heck, do their live album. Wild West is one that has it on there amongst others. It's very good.
All right,
All
Check
right.
it out, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the podcast,
signing
everybody.
off.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Toodles.